influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. The World Today. On Monday, only on Telesur. Community organization and revolutionary verse fused in And Don't Stop. A window to urban culture and political resistance, conducted by the hip-hop band Rebel Diaz. And Don't Stop, Friday, only on Telesur. The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. The World Today. On Monday, only on Telesur. Events told by their main figures. Research findings that transcend our people's views.
Monsanto se ve entre un buen sector de los agricultores como una gran amenaza.
Hay un montón de gente que se va a España a trabajar, a otro sitio a trabajar. No tienes que estar aquí siempre para que ayude a tu pueblo.
Desde entonces estoy buscando a mi nieto. Por gente liberada, he sabido que es un varón. Hace poco ha cumplido 6 años. Alguien lo tiene.
No somos simples estudiantes que venimos, entramos, escuchamos la clase de un profesor y después nos levantamos y nos vamos, sino que entendemos lo que pasa y sobre todo tenemos que ser sujetos de cambio frente a lo que pasa y tenemos que tener un rol en nuestra educación y en nuestra sociedad.
Telesur Report on Monday, only on Telesur.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Telesur English. This is from the south, the evening news brief from Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Ray Gomez and we start this new edition right now. Costa Rica has been placed on red alert as Tropical Storm Nate brings torrential rains and flooding to much of the country. At least 2 people are reported dead as a result of a mudslide, and a number of others are missing. At 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tropical Storm Nate was registering sustained winds of 65 kilometers per hour and was heading north-northwest across Nicaragua towards eastern Honduras. The storm is expected to strengthen as it moves over the northwestern Caribbean Sea into Friday. A hurricane watch is in force for Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Also, the state government of Florida has issued state of emergency for the western part of the territory, as Nate is supposed to arrive there as a hurricane this weekend. Our correspondent Fernando Francia has the latest from Costa Rica's capital, San Jose.
Tropical Storm Nate, as it has been named according to the international system, is now affecting Costa Rica across almost all the country. The National Emergency Committee has declared a red alert for the whole country, especially the southern region, where many indigenous and rural communities are experiencing flooding because of the very heavy rains. It hasn't stopped raining for 24 hours, and even longer in some places. There are reports of severe floods, especially in Guanacaste, in the northwest. There are rivers that have burst their banks and flooded entire communities. We've heard there are about 5,000 people in shelters, and also 2 people have been reported dead as a result of the storm. It started as a tropical depression and turned into a tropical storm in the last few hours. It is now heading towards Nicaragua. The effects are being felt in a much wider area than that of the storm itself. Some very strong winds, but mainly heavy rain and flooding across the country. The authorities are giving news conferences regularly with the latest information. So we will be keeping you informed about the situation in Costa Rica with Tropical Storm Nate.
Thank you, Fernando Francia from Costa Rica. The U.S.-based subsidiary of Venezuela's state oil company, PDVSA, is donating 50,000 barrels of diesel fuel to Puerto Rico to assist with recovery efforts after the island was devastated by Hurricane Maria. The fuel from Citgo Petroleum Corporation will be crucial to power the generators that hospitals and other vital facilities are relying on after the storm took out most of the island's power grid. Citgo also donated fuel to Texas after Hurricane Harvey last month. Staying in Puerto Rico, President Donald Trump's visit to the island this week has drawn sharp criticism from many in the colonial territory, including the independence leader Oscar Lopez Rivera. Rivera said the U.S. leader disrespected Puerto Ricans when he tried to compare the deaths from Hurricane Maria with those caused by Katrina back in 2005.
What this man did was to come here and disrespect the people of Puerto Rico. The first thing he says is that there was a storm here, but no, there was a hurricane here, and there's a huge difference between a hurricane and a storm. He also tried to compare what's happening in Puerto Rico with Katrina. You can't compare a hurricane with another, because they're not the same. They're never the same. However, there is something in common, and it's the U.S. government negligence in repairing what needs to be repaired. The Puerto Rican people is a strong one. The Puerto Rican people is one that truly deserves respect, and the Puerto Rican people is also truly solidary. And what we're seeing here in Puerto Rico is our people working, doing everything possible to try to bring Puerto Rico to its normalcy, or if that even exists, because this is a colony, and a colony can never be normal.
And on the subject of climate change, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged all countries to implement the Paris Agreement with greater ambition. The head of the United Nations made his remark ahead of a trip to the storm-ravaged Caribbean next weekend. He plans to travel on Saturday to Antigua, Barbuda, and Dominica, which were devastated by hurricanes Irma and Maria. Now let's listen to what he said.
We know that the world has the tools, the technologies and the wealth to address climate change. But we must show more determination in moving towards a green, clean and sustainable energy future. Once again, I urge countries to implement the Paris Agreement and with greater ambition. And that is why I will convene a climate summit in 2019, as you know. But today and every day I am determined to ensure that the United Nations works to protect our common future and to seize the opportunities of climate action. Thank you very much.
This is other news. Spain's Constitutional Court has barred the Monday planned decision or session of the Catalan Parliament in a move to stop the push for independence. The court said that the session would be a, quote, breach of the Constitution. The court's ruling supported the challenge by Catalonia's Socialist Party, who are against the split from Spain. According to the court, allowing the Catalan Parliament to meet would violate the risks or the rights of the party's MPs. Catalan President Carles Puigdemont had said the parliament was planning to announce Catalonia's independence from Spain on Monday. Our correspondent Joan Ortiz Zara has the latest from Barcelona.
Here in Barcelona at noon this Thursday, we received the news of the Constitutional Court's suspension of the extraordinary parliamentary session that was being prepared for next Monday. In that meeting of the Catalan Chamber, the President Carles Puigdemont was going to explain to the political parties supporting independence how the referendum results will be applied. There was speculation that this could be the meeting at which Catalonia's independence will be declared, but no official source has confirmed that. Instead, authorities were avoiding the question, leaving next Monday's events in great uncertainty. However, the President Carles Puigdemont did say that at the end of this week or the beginning of the next one, independence was going to be declared, as laid down in the separation laws that the Catalan Parliament has approved. The thing is that this plenary session was not even announced officially. This means the congressmen have not yet received the letter of notification. What we don't know if they are actually going to have the session, and if they are, people are expecting to see a heavy national police presence to prevent congressmen from entering the chamber. Now all this is speculation. We don't know what's going to happen. What we do know is that the Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy has this morning directly asked Carles Puigdemont not to declare independence to avoid grave consequences. Meanwhile, the private bank Banco de Sabadell decided to move its headquarters out of Barcelona this Thursday afternoon. This comes as an economic measure to protect its clients and make sure that the bank will continue to enjoy the benefits of belonging to the Eurozone. If a bank leaves Catalonia, we can say the independence is really happening and will become a reality.
Joan, thank you. Joan Ortiz from Barcelona. More news in a minute. Stay with us. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has traveled from Belarus to Turkey on the latest leg of his trip to diversify Venezuela's economic relations and discuss the global energy market. Maduro held talks with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Venezuela and Belarus have developed close economic collaboration since 2006, when they signed their first cooperation agreement. The two presidents discussed new projects in the areas of housing and auto manufacturing, as well as oil and gas. Before Minsk, President Maduro was in Moscow for the Virgin Energy Forum. He also held a meeting with President Vladimir Putin to reaffirm the alliance between Venezuela and Russia.
We see that Venezuela is going through difficult times. The impression is that you've still managed to establish some kind of contact with those political forces that are opposing you. But work between our countries is being continued, including in regards to the economy.
It seems to me that now everything is fine with us. We're moving up. We're coping with our problems and starting to move forward. Now we need to coordinate our plans for cooperation in energy, agriculture, and trade. We're very grateful to you for the final agreement on grain. It has helped us greatly, especially in the social sphere.
Our correspondent Hansel Oro is at the Energy Forum in Moscow and sent this update.
Businessmen from different countries have participated in the Energy Week here in Moscow. Numerous different topics were discussed in the third meeting, which ended today. The purpose is to find alternative methods for energy, moving away from fossil fuels and looking towards renewable energy sources. With that in mind, Russia has been at the forefront of the push towards clean energy. Russia's solar company has applied groundbreaking technologies on an industrial scale in cooperation with Japan and South Korea. Russia has also devised new methods of generating electricity using nature and its four elements. It is widely believed that Russia currently consumes 84% of its power from clean energy, and by 2035, experts believe the number to go up to 90%. During the conference, another topic of discussion was OPEC. They spoke on how best to establish and respect the agreements from OPEC and non-OPEC nations when it relates to oil production cuts and to keep working to stabilize oil prices globally. Russia also proposed to reopen the Arctic Ocean route in order to be able to transport gas to Western Europe and also to Asian countries in the Pacific. All of the spokespeople for these companies who have come here this week in Moscow and St. Petersburg are looking for new policies to preserve and protect the environment.
Okay, thank you very much, Hansel Oro from Moscow. And speaking of Venezuela, the country's Vice President Glas has announced the detention of Manuel Bernardo Chacín, who was linked with the right-wing party and accused of organizing violent protests against the government. Chacín has revealed what is considered to be the entire destabilization plan for Venezuela's regional elections, which will be held on the 15th of October. We have this report.
The Vice President Tariq al-Assaimi has denounced a destabilization plan that was intended to unsettle the country ahead of the next elections on October 15th.
Neutralizado un plan.
Al-Assaimi showed video of Manuel Bernardo Chacín, the 31-year-old member of the opposition party, Voluntad Popular, confessing his involvement in the plot.
My name is Manuel Bernardo Chacín, aka Anonymous Chucky. I'm member of Voluntad Popular. Oscar Perez contacted me by telegram to let the guys from the resistance know that is being created a national liberation movement called Equilibrio Nacional to join to this movement that aims different operations.
They want to provoke social unrest. How can one provoke a social unrest? By trying to generate much confusion, anger, and rage from the Venezuelan people.
Chacín Diaz, aka Chucky, had 7 explosive devices on him when he was detained. He is accused of taking part in the violent protests of April and July this year in Venezuela. Their plan, which has been denounced by the Vice President, was to reignite the street protests and attacks of the public institutions and services. It would be a new phase on what has been known as a non-conventional war or soft beat, designed to destabilize the country, facilitate foreign intervention, and oust President Nicolas Maduro.
In the middle of an economic war like the one that Venezuela is facing, the hardest situations that our people are facing are exaggerated and manipulated with the aim of intensifying their emotions to turn them against the government through confusion and manipulation.
Something as simple as making the daily lives of Venezuelans difficult to provoke a sense of weariness so that they blame the government is a fundamental part of this strategy. Without cash in the ATMs, without basic products, gasoline, food, sabotage is a weapon of war.
There is a communication strategy, an entire strategy of the daily manipulation via the media, for example, when commercial establishments make people stand in long lines just to access basic products, or when public services are manipulated. We have denounced this many times, the way the people are used to attack the electrical company against the water services, and it all does is to create a climate of discomfort and confuses the population.
Chachin Diaz also confessed that on October 10th, just a few days before elections, the opposition wants to reintroduce violent protests to the streets. Voluntad Popular, the party that Chachin presumably belongs to, have released a statement denying any link to the accused.
Lawyers for Ecuador's jail Vice President Glas have filed 2 petitions to have his detention overturned. On Wednesday, President Lenín Moreno named Maria Alejandra Vicuña as his acting Vice President while Glas is in prison. Vicuña was previously Ecuador's housing minister. The lawyers for Glas say the judge who orders his detention failed to comply with correct procedures. Their second petition is to have Glas's imprisonment changed to house arrest. Now let's go live to Quito. I'm my colleague Sayini Gray. Sayini, hello. What else should we know on this case?
So Ray, like we told you earlier, the appeals process for Vice President Jorge Glas has stepped into high gear. His attorneys, his defense team are going to use a 2-pronged approach. The first would be to try and have the pre-trial detention made less onerous. They are hoping for maybe 1 of 3 things: that he either be required to visit a Department of Justice on a schedule determined by the courts, he be fitted with an electronic monitoring device, most likely on his ankle, that will record his whereabouts, or that he be placed in house arrest. This hearing is going to take place in the National Court of Justice tomorrow at 2:30 or 14:30 Ecuadorian time. So we're going to be monitoring that. But his legal team also plan to attack the pre-trial detention directly. So like we tried to explain earlier, there is a specific period within which the Attorney General should have applied for the pre-trial detention of Vice President Glas and his uncle Ricardo Rivera. That deadline was Sunday. We know that he made the application in time. However, the Vice President's legal team also believe that it's not sufficient that the application have been made before Sunday, but that the decision should have been made before Sunday. We know that the case was heard on Monday. We know that the decision came on Monday, and that is what they're hoping is the legal technicality within which they can have this pre-trial detention invalidated. So tomorrow we shall either find out 1 of 3 things: that the Vice President remains in his pre-trial detention as it currently exists, he's been there since Monday, or that he gets a less onerous detention, we just discussed the options, or that it is completely invalidated. It's determined illegal because the decision came out of the specified period, aka the deadline Sunday. We know the decision came on Monday and it's completely invalidated. If that's the case, he will be freed. So those are the things that we're looking at to come out of the court case tomorrow. We also know, and this is in relation to the Vice President himself, his office, we've been told by workers that persons have already been dismissed. We had been told that quite a few others would have been dismissed today. We are trying to verify that at this particular time. We know that 228 persons in the Vice President's office. We know that there's a new acting Vice President. We told you about her yesterday. So these are the things that we're looking at this fast-moving case, and this is all related to the Odebrecht corruption scheme. The Vice President is fighting corruption charges. He maintains that he's innocent. So that's what we're dealing with right now here in Ecuador. I'm going to hand it right back to you, Ray. As soon as we get any more information, we'll update the Telesur networks.
Understood. Siene, thank you very much. Good evening. Siene Gray from Ecuador. Several days of commemoration are underway in Bolivia to mark the 50th anniversary of the death of Che Guevara on October the 9th. Che Guevara was captured and killed in Valle Grande by Bolivian special forces supported by the CIA. He had left Cuba to launch a guerrilla struggle in Bolivia the year before. His aim was to trigger a revolutionary upsurge across South America, but a failure to win support among local campesinos and from the Bolivian Communist Party resulted in his defeat. Telesur's correspondent Freddy Morales is in Valle Grande and sent this report.
This is the laundry in Valle Grande's hospital. On this spot, 50 years ago on October the 9th, the body of Ernesto Che Guevara was brought here. This is where the famous picture of Che Guevara's corpse with his open eyes was taken. To mark the 50th anniversary of that historic moment, a week of cultural, artistic and political tributes is being held. One high point will be the event on Sunday, beside the fig tree where Che Guevara was captured and executed. On Monday, the principal events will be held here in Valle Grande City. Some 15,000 people are expected to attend, coming from Bolivia and beyond. Among them will be some important political figures, including the vice presidents of Cuba and Venezuela. Also, Che's children are expected to attend. From Valle Grande, I'm Freddy Morales for Telesur.
And the Iraqi government forces have declared the liberation of the town of Hawiyah, which is one of the Islamic State's group's last enclaves in the country. Here is this report.
Villagers from in and around the town of Hawaji welcomed Iraqi security forces as they drove through the recently liberated town. The area was one of the last remaining enclaves of the Islamic State group in Iraq. A 2-week offensive to drive out IS has been met with open arms from locals, who have been living under the group's so-called caliphate for several years.
Thank God, we have got rid of Daesh. We have been waiting for this day for 3 years.
The Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi addressed reporters in Paris to praise the offensive.
Today I can announce the good news to all Iraqis in our armed forces, and all lovers of peace, and to our partners in the coalition, and all those who suffer from terrorism, that the town of Hawija was liberated at the hands of the Iraqi forces.
The successful liberation narrows the group's territory to a small stretch along the Euphrates River Valley, which borders neighbouring Syria. The group now face an ever-encroaching defeat over the border by Syrian government forces and coalition support in the province of Deir ez-Zor. A combination of Kurdish Peshmerga Shia troops backed by Iran, federal police units and Arab volunteers joined Iraqi security forces as they patrolled the deserted streets. Remnants of the group's presence still remain. The liberation is being painted as a success story. However, around 78,000 civilians are believed to have been displaced by the fighting.
We are barefoot, we don't have anything. We can't buy shoes even. They cost 30 or 35 dinars. We can't afford it. We are barely alive. We live in hunger. Here, the Kurds have received us. They brought us water, they brought us food. We're thankful to them.
As the IS caliphate becomes an ever more distant memory, Iraq's future remains uncertain. On September 25th, Iraqi Kurds voted for independence in a referendum which was not only condemned by the government in Baghdad, but also by Iraq's neighbours Iran and Turkey. The first victory against IS has almost been won, but a new set of trials and tribulations facing Iraq has only just begun.
We've come to the end of this evening news. These and many other news, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Pre Gomez. Thank you for watching.